I sent a tweet this morning. I said that listening to the experts is the dumbest, smart-sounding idea of all time. There's some things that sound smart, but they're really the dumbest thing ever. I'll give you another example. Be yourself. Have you ever heard that advice? So try to be yourself. Just be yourself. That's the best thing you can do. Worst advice ever. There's no advice that's worse than be yourself. Now, here's better advice. Try to be a better version of yourself. Try to be better than yourself. Right? Now, that's good advice. Try to continuously improve. Try to not accept where you are as good enough. Don't try to be yourself, because you wouldn't wear clothes, you wouldn't bathe, you wouldn't obey the law. If it was just up to you, just being yourself, you'd be the worst person ever. Do you ever have a friend who tells you that they're just being honest? Oh yeah, I know it might sound rude, but I'm just honest. I'm just being honest. Do you want that? Wouldn't you rather be around somebody who wouldn't be that honest if the only purpose is to hurt you? Can't help you. Didn't help you at all. It was just honest and it hurt. Maybe you don't want that person to be around you. All right, so listening to the experts is seriously the stupidest advice anybody ever gave. And still, I'm going to give you that advice too. It's both the stupidest advice ever given, and I'm also going to give it to you right now. Yeah, you have to listen to the experts. You have to. You'd be an idiot not to. But believing them, that's another story. Because you have to, you want to reach the level of maturity where you can say this to yourself. If the experts don't agree, how do you know which expert is right? You're not the expert on experts. You're not an expert on coronavirus. You're not an expert on climate change. And if you talk to the experts, you don't know if they're lying to you. You can't tell. You're just trusting the experts. So are you really trusting science? Are you really listening to science? Are you really listening to the experts? Well, you might be listening to them, but should you? You don't know. You don't know. How do you know that science is at that early stage where they might be more wrong than right on some topic, or they progress to the point where they're more right than wrong? How can you tell where they are on that progression? Can you tell that something is really settled versus something that's not yet settled? You can't tell. There's no way to tell. Even an expert can't tell that. So you certainly can't tell. So if you don't know which experts are right and which ones are wrong, what does it mean to trust the experts? It's nonsense. It's complete nonsense. So instead, on questions like, masks and hydroxychloroquine and lockdowns, clearly there are experts on both sides. So what about going with the majority? How about that? Should you go with the majority? Because most experts, if they're all on one side, let's say it's 90-10. Would you go with the 90 just automatically? Well, again, you don't know if this is a mature science in which when 90% of the people are on the same side, it tells you a lot. It tells you that that is a solid opinion. Or is it the beginning where 90% of the people are wrong, but we won't know for a while? How do you tell? You can't. So what I do is risk management instead. So instead of saying those experts are certainly right, I say to myself, if I follow this expert, what's the upside and what's the downside? So with masks, for example, I don't believe the experts, because that would be stupid. And I don't believe them because there are more that say that they work than don't, although I'm biased by that. I admit I'm biased by that, but it's not automatically true because most experts say it. It's not true because there are studies, metadata, meta-analysis, as Dr. Fauci says. That doesn't make it true because there are probably plenty of things that there's meta-analysis and it's wrong. And we know that 50% of the studies that are submitted to journals and published, peer-reviewed and published, something like half of them turn out to be not reproducible. So science isn't one thing that's right, and all the smart people believe it because it's one thing and it's right. Science is this big mess of stuff that is more wrong than right, because there's more stuff that you're working through the early parts than there are things that you've settled. And you don't know what's wrong and you don't know what's right. So I go with risk management, and I say to myself, for example, I don't know anybody who died from wearing a mask. Do you? I don't know anybody. I don't know anybody who got some incurable disease from wearing a mask. Do I believe it's possible? Yeah, totally. Do I believe that some people might be worse off wearing masks, and that the downside for those certain medical conditions, etc., is worse than the risk of getting coronavirus? Yeah, those people certainly exist. I would say so. But until I see people dropping from mask-related illness, I'm going to go with the meta-analysis and the Fauci that says, we think it works, it might work, could be wrong, but we don't see people dying from wearing masks, but the meta-analysis strongly suggests people will die from not wearing masks. So it's a risk management question. That is how smart people act. Trusting experts is the dumbest frickin' thing you could ever do in your life, even though they're usually right. They're usually right. I would bet that if you looked at all expert opinions over time, you'd find they're more right than wrong, depending on the category. All right. And that's about all I wanted to talk about. How about that? Scott doesn't have to wear a mask for 4 hours like teachers. Well, I would grant you that wearing a mask for a long time is way riskier than wearing it for a short time. So that's true. And there again, I would go to, if we see a massive health issue from wearing masks, and we would see it first in the people who have to wear masks for longer periods, I would say we should take that seriously. But until we do, there's been enough people wearing masks. I mean, look at Asia. In Asia, it's fairly common for people to wear masks, all day long. Do we have data from Asia that says, all those mask wearers were worse off? Don't think so. Now, there's another thing happening. I don't have confirmation of this, but it looks like the regular influenza rates are low this year. I need a fact check on that because I didn't see a source I trusted. But I'm very curious what regular influenza will look like this year. If masks work, you would expect it would be lower than ever. If there's some kind of cross immunity thing, maybe it'll be less than ever because of that. But here's something that I would at least put out there as a possibility. I've told you before that the regular influenza death rate is fake, and that you've never met anybody who died from regular flu. Have you? Now, there's always going to be somebody who says yes, but we all know somebody who died of coronavirus. Maybe not directly, but you know somebody who died of coronavirus, and you see them in the news, etc. That seems real. There are real people dying of coronavirus, and a lot of them. You don't know a lot of people who died of influenza. I know exactly 0 in 63 years of life. Apparently 20 to 50,000 people around me have been dropping dead from this influenza, and somehow I never noticed. It escaped my view. I certainly know people who died in traffic accidents, and that's about the same number per year, right? Ask yourself this. Do you know anybody who died of an overdose or anybody who died of a traffic-related accident? Yes, you do. How many of those are there per year? About the same as alleged influenza deaths. I mean, it's in that range. The the low tens of thousands per year, same range. Why is it you know somebody who died of AIDS? Probably. You know somebody who died car accident. I know somebody who died in a parachute accident. But I don't know anybody who died of influenza. So I'm going to say that, and this is one of the tips I have in my book, Loserthink, that if you're trying to figure out what's true and what's false, here are some tips. If the news on the left and the news on the right says a fact is a fact and they say it the same, it's probably true. If either the news on the left or the news on the right are the only ones that say it's a fact, but the other news says it's not a fact, it's probably not a fact. All right? Whoever says it's not true has the advantage. It's usually not true if somebody says it's not true. All right, that's a weird comment. And the other way you can tell if something's true, or at least it's a flag, is if the official data completely conflicts with your observation. All right? For example, most of my life I was taught that if you ate within, half an hour or whatever of swimming, you would get a cramp and you would die because you ate food too close to swimming. And yet, I lived my entire life without hearing of a single person who died because they got a cramp because they ate food too close to swimming. Do you know how many times everybody I know ate food too soon to swimming? Basically everybody. So the whole world is full of people who are violating that, eating food and swimming, and I'd never heard of anybody who got a cramp and died from swimming. And then decades pass, and sure enough, the science comes out and it says, there was never any science to suggest you would get a cramp from eating before swimming. Sure enough, the observation was that none of it was happening. The data, what I thought was the science, probably was never real science, but I thought it was science, said that people were dropping like flies, or at least they could. So the influenza thing is the same. It's the same, that it doesn't match observation. And I still have a big question on the Spanish flu. I'm seeing in the comments, somebody mentioned that. How did the Spanish flu ever go away? If everything that we've been told by the experts is true, and remember, we're supposed to trust the experts, but the experts have told us that unless you have herd immunity, a virus isn't going to go away. Spanish flu didn't reach herd immunity, did it? But it went away. So is that because there was some other immunity that was cross immunity? Was it because there's a genetic thing where all the people who could get it got it? There's a big, big unknown about the Spanish flu. And I see people even disagreeing about whether masks worked during the Spanish flu. I feel like we would know that, wouldn't we? But I guess we don't.